People will only treat you the way you allow them to. For too long, they believed you would always be there, chasing, waiting, proving your worth. They got comfortable, didn't they? They assumed no matter how distant they acted, you'd always be reaching for them, seeking their attention, feeding their ego. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you withdraw your energy, stop seeking validation, and instead reclaim your power? It's a shift so profound it shakes everything, both for you and for them. Because when you detach with grace, you don't just walk away, you take back control. Nothing unsettles someone more than realizing they no longer have a grip on you. Suddenly they're faced with a truth they never prepared for. You don't need them, and that realization stings more than words ever could. Let's be honest, there's something unsettling about a person who no longer cares. It disrupts the balance of power. See, they relied on your attention like oxygen, even if they never admitted it. They fed off knowing you were always there, always trying, always proving. But when you stop playing their game, when you refuse to engage, the illusion shatters. Their ego, once inflated by your pursuit, starts to deflate. And in that moment, the roles reverse. They start asking themselves, why aren't they chasing me? Did I lose them? Were they ever really mine to begin with? This is where it gets interesting, because while they sit there questioning, you are stepping into your power. You are choosing yourself, and that choice is what makes you unstoppable. Enough time has been wasted nurturing someone else's ego. Enough nights have been spent overanalyzing their words, their silence, their indifference. Enough energy has been given to someone who took you for granted. Now it's time to pour into yourself. Think of it like a garden. Every action you take towards self-respect, self-worth, and self-love is a seed planted for something greater. But for too long, you've been watering someone else's soil, waiting for them to recognize your value. Stop waiting. Start growing. Have you ever noticed how some people act completely unbothered? They scroll through their phone at a party, pretend to be lost in their own world, and act like they don't need anyone. But here's the truth: they do. That indifference is a mask, a carefully crafted defense mechanism to protect their ego. They don't want to seem like they care. They don't want to appear vulnerable. But deep down, they crave the validation they pretend to reject. And the second you stop giving it to them, the mask starts to crack. When you were chasing, they were in control. When you stop, they're forced to sit with the very thing they were running from, themselves. This isn't about being cold or heartless. It's about setting boundaries, about knowing your worth, about refusing to be someone's emotional safety net while they act like they don't need you. And yes, letting go is scary. Fear creeps in. What if I lose them for good? What if no one else sees my worth? What if I end up alone? But in that fear lies your greatest strength, because the moment you stop seeking their approval, you free yourself from their control. And the truth is, you were never really chasing them. You were chasing the version of yourself that you thought you had to be to keep them interested. So let's make a choice today, not for them, but for you. Let go of the need for validation. Let go of the belief that your worth is tied to someone else's attention. Stand tall, stand firm, own your power. Drop this in the comments below. I am enough. Say it, mean it, live it. Because the moment you stop caring, they lose control, and their ego, it can't take it. Feeding their ego is like handing them wings and watching them fly away. The more you give without limits, the less they value it. That's the cruel irony, isn't it? Caring is supposed to be a good thing. That's what you were told. Give more, show more, invest more, and things will work out. But what if caring too much is exactly what gave their ego wings? When you pour all your energy into someone without boundaries, you aren't just giving them love or attention, you're building them a throne. You're teaching them that they are the center of your world. And once they realize that, they take flight, soaring higher on the pedestal you unknowingly built, convinced they'll never fall. But here's where it gets twisted. The higher they go, the more they expect from you. They start believing that your world revolves around theirs, that your attention is their birthright. The more they expect, the more they take, and before you know it, you're running on empty, wondering how you ended up here. When did your happiness start depending on someone who barely noticed your efforts? Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where no matter how much you gave, it was never enough? No matter how much love you poured in, how much effort you made, how much you tried to prove your worth, it only seemed to push them further away. It's like filling a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour, it all spills out, leaving you drained, exhausted, and questioning why they don't see your value. Here's why. They stopped looking the moment you put them above yourself. They stopped seeing you as an equal, and that's not entirely their fault. You played a part, didn't you? By overgiving, by chasing, by making them the sun around which your universe revolved, you unknowingly taught them to expect it. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. That's the hard truth. You can't teach someone to respect you by showing them you'll sacrifice yourself just to please them. Love shouldn't feel like a test you're constantly failing. The more you give without boundaries, the more they believe they deserve it. Not as a gift, but as a right. They stop appreciating, they stop reciprocating, and they start thinking, why should I try? Everything I need is already being handed to me. And the worst part? You start believing it too, that you have to keep giving, keep proving, keep caring more just to be enough. But enough is enough. Caring too much is like watering a plant with no roots. It doesn't matter how much you give, it's never going to grow because it can't. And all the while, you're draining your own resources, your own energy, your own ability to thrive. You think you're doing the right thing, but what you're really doing is teaching them that no matter how they treat you, you'll always be there. And that's the lie their ego depends on. So why is it so hard to stop? Why does it feel impossible to pull back, to let go, to stop caring so much? Because deep down, there's fear. A fear that if you stop, they'll walk away. A fear that if you don't show them how much you care, they won't care at all. The idea that your worth is tied to how much you give, how much you do, how much you prove yourself. But let's shatter that lie right here, right now. Your worth has never been tied to someone else's approval. Your value isn't measured by how much you sacrifice for someone who takes you for granted. And the truth is, if they only stayed because of what you gave, they were never truly yours to begin with. Real love isn't built on what you do, it's built on who you are. If you stop overgiving, will they think you don't love them? Will they feel abandoned? Remember, when you pull back, when you stop overcaring, you aren't abandoning them. You're choosing yourself. You're setting boundaries. You're showing them that your love is a gift, not a guarantee. And yes, it's going to be hard. Their ego isn't going to like it. When you stop feeding it, they might pull away, act confused, maybe even try to manipulate you into going back to the old dynamic. But their reaction isn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your peace, to reclaim your energy, to remind yourself that your worth is not defined by how much you care about someone who can't even appreciate it. And the moment you stop overgiving, over-explaining, and over-trying, something shifts. Their ego begins to falter. The wings you gave them start to feel heavy. Suddenly they're not so sure of their place in your life, not so sure they can take you for granted. And you begin to rise. You start to feel lighter, freer, more in control of your own happiness. The moment you stop watering the weeds, the flowers in your life finally have room to bloom. The strings were never tied. They just wanted you to believe they were. Control is an illusion, a trick of the mind, a story people tell themselves to feel powerful. They thought they had you wrapped around their finger, didn't they? They expected you to dance when they moved, to wait when they disappeared, to crave their attention like a starving soul desperate for scraps. And for a while, maybe you did. Maybe you played the part. Maybe you believed they were in control, that their presence, their approval, their attention dictated your happiness. But here's the truth. They never had the control they thought they did. It was never theirs. It was always yours. You just forgot that for a while. Why do they act like they hold the power? Because the ego is greedy. It craves certainty. It thrives on the idea that it has a grip on someone else's emotions. And every time you gave in, every time you answered when they called, every time you adjusted yourself to keep them close, you fed that belief. You made them feel untouchable, like they were the center of gravity in your world. But that belief was built on sand, and the moment you stop feeding it, the whole structure collapses. Have you ever noticed how some people operate like puppeteers? They don't come right out and demand control. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, they use subtle moves. They withhold affection, just enough to keep you guessing. They delay their responses to make you anxious. They drop vague, half-hearted compliments to keep you searching for more. It's not just about control, it's about creating dependence. They want you to feel like their validation is the missing piece that completes you. But here's the thing about puppets. The strings only work if you choose not to cut them. The only person who can truly control you is the one you let inside your mind. Think about it. How many times have you done something just to keep them interested? Sent that extra text when they were pulling away? Changed your plans to fit into theirs? Stayed up at night replaying conversations, analyzing their every word, trying to figure out what you did wrong? That wasn't their control. That was your fear. Fear of losing them. Fear of being alone. Fear that without them, you wouldn't be enough. But the moment you recognize that fear, you take away their power. Because the strings they thought they pulled were never real. They were just made of your own doubts and insecurities. Picture this. You're standing on a stage. They're in the audience, holding what they believe are strings attached to you. They move their hand, expecting you to react, but this time you don't. You stay still, detached, unbothered. The strings go slack, and for the first time, they feel powerless. That's when panic sets in, because their entire sense of control was never about actual power. It was about your willingness to play along. And now you're done playing. It's not easy to stop reacting. It feels unnatural, even scary, to let go of the need to prove yourself. What if they stop caring? What if they walk away? What if they move on? These questions creep in, whispering doubt, making you wonder if pulling back is the right choice. But let's be honest. Is it really worth holding on to someone who only stays because they think they have control? When you let go of those strings, you aren't losing them. You're freeing yourself. Control isn't power. True power is knowing you don't need to control anything. True power is knowing you can walk away and still be whole. And here's the irony. The moment you stop playing along, they lose their grip, not just on you, but on themselves. Because their ego, their self-importance, their entire sense of worth was built on the idea that they were the ones calling the shots. And when you detach, when you stop responding, stop chasing, stop reacting, they're left standing in their own emptiness, forced to face a truth they spent so long avoiding. They were never in control. It was always an illusion. But let's not sugarcoat it. Taking back your power doesn't mean they'll admit they were wrong. They won't thank you for showing them the truth. More often than not, they'll try to get the control back. Maybe they'll test the waters with a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" Maybe they'll try to guilt you, saying you've changed, as if your growth is something to be ashamed of. But remember this, their reaction is not your responsibility. Their ego is not your burden to carry. This is your moment to cut the strings, to stand tall, to remind yourself that their control was never real. It was just a reflection of your own fears. And the moment you do, something incredible happens. You stop being the puppet and start becoming the master of your own life. They thought they held the strings. They thought they were pulling the moves. But now they see the truth. The strings were never tied, and you were never theirs to control. When you stop chasing, they start noticing. Independence is power. Independence isn't about shutting people out or pretending you don't care. It's not about building walls so high that no one can reach you. Independence is about standing firm in your worth, knowing who you are, and refusing to let someone else decide your value. It's about realizing that your happiness was never meant to be held in someone else's hands. And here's the secret they don't want you to know. Your independence doesn't just free you, it makes you irresistible. Why? Because independence is rare. Most people live in a cycle of seeking validation, seeking approval, seeking someone to tell them they are enough. They look outward for what can only be found within. But when you break free from that, when you stop chasing, stop proving, stop needing, it's like stepping out of the fog and into the sunlight. Suddenly, you're not running after anyone. You're standing tall, radiating confidence. And that energy pulls people in. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It's a quiet force, an unshakable knowing that you are enough. When you are independent, you're not asking, do they like me? You're asking, do I like them? Do they align with my values? Do they deserve my time? That shift is powerful. It flips the dynamic. It moves you from proving yourself to choosing yourself. Have you ever noticed how people seem to want you more when you stop being so available? That's not a coincidence. When you're always there, always giving, always making them the center of your world, they begin to take it for granted. But when you pull back, not out of malice but out of self-respect, they feel the shift. They notice the absence. They start to wonder why your energy isn't freely flowing toward them anymore. It's like a lighthouse standing firm on the shore. A lighthouse doesn't chase after ships. It doesn't beg them to stay. It shines steady and unshaken, guiding those who recognize its light. That's independence. You don't run after people hoping to be seen. You are seen simply by standing in your own power. The moment you stop seeking their validation is the moment they start seeking yours. Independence creates balance. Relationships thrive when both people bring something to the table, not when one person does all the work while the other just receives. When you are independent, you're not trying to complete someone or looking for someone to complete you. You're already whole, and that wholeness is what draws people in. It's what sets you apart. But let's be honest, embracing independence isn't always easy. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths. You have to let go of the belief that your value is measured by how much you're needed. You have to face the fear of standing alone, of walking forward without leaning on someone else for security, and you have to trust that the right people will appreciate you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them. This is where things get interesting. When you start embracing your independence, their ego takes a hit. They wonder, why aren't they chasing me anymore? Why don't they need me like they used to? And the answer is simple. Because you've stopped making them your center. You've stopped pouring all your energy into proving your worth to someone else and started investing it in yourself. And that shift changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, and it changes how others see you too. But don't mistake independence for indifference. This isn't about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about balance. It's about showing that while you value connection, you value yourself even more. Independence is not the rejection of love. It's the foundation of it. True independence isn't about proving you don't need anyone. It's about setting a standard. It's about saying, this is who I am. If you want to be in my life, you have to meet me here. And here's the beautiful part. Those who truly value you will rise to that challenge. So what happens next? As you embrace your independence, you start to feel different. You stop worrying about who is coming and going in your life. You stop needing someone else's attention to feel whole. And in that freedom, you discover a new kind of confidence, a quiet, steady power that doesn't demand attention, but naturally attracts it. They will notice. They will feel the shift. But by then, you won't be looking back. You'll be too busy moving forward. Soft heart, steel spine. Your kindness is your strength. Kindness isn't a weakness. It's the armor of those who know their worth. Yet how many times have you been told that your kindness makes you vulnerable? That being patient, forgiving, or compassionate only invites others to take advantage of you. It's a lie, a convenient one, because it's easier for them to mistake kindness for weakness than to admit what it really is. Power. Not the loud, forceful kind of power that demands attention, but something stronger, something quiet, like an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. And once you start seeing it that way, everything changes. Kindness takes courage. It takes strength to choose grace over retaliation, patience over anger, understanding over resentment. But somewhere along the way, they convinced themselves that your kindness was a weakness they could exploit. They thought, as long as I keep taking, they'll keep giving. As long as I push, they'll keep bending. And for a while, maybe they were right. Maybe you let things slide, forgave when you shouldn't have, showed up even when they didn't deserve it. But kindness is not submission. It's not about tolerating disrespect or shrinking yourself to keep the peace. True kindness, the kind you embody, comes with boundaries. It's not about bending until you break. It's about standing tall and saying, I can be kind and still demand respect. Have you ever felt like your kindness was thrown back in your face? Like no matter how much you gave, they only took more? It's exhausting, isn't it? You start to wonder if kindness is even worth it. But the problem was never your kindness. The problem was their inability to appreciate it. They failed to see that your patience, your grace, your understanding weren't weaknesses. They were proof of your strength. Picture this. You're reaching out a hand to someone drowning, but instead of pulling themselves up, they drag you down with them. You keep trying, keep reaching, but eventually you realize if you don't let go, you'll both sink. That's the balance of kindness, knowing when to help and when to walk away. Because kindness should never cost you your peace, your self-respect, or your dignity. Boundaries don't make you unkind. They make your kindness meaningful. Kindness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It doesn't mean accepting less than you deserve or allowing someone to treat you as an afterthought. Kindness is about giving freely, but only to those who value it. It's about knowing your limits and standing firm when someone tries to cross them. And when you set those boundaries, they notice. But let's not pretend this is easy. If you're naturally kind, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, even scary. You worry they'll think you've changed, that you're not as caring as you used to be. And maybe they will think that, but that's not your problem, it's theirs. Because the people who truly value your kindness will never demand that you compromise your self-worth to prove it. Something shifts when you start protecting your kindness. The ones who only valued you for what you could give, they start to disappear. And that's a good thing because they were never there for you. They were there for themselves. But the ones who respect your boundaries, they stay, and they value you even more because they see the strength behind your kindness. Kindness with boundaries isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And when you start living that way, it doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. You start to realize that saying no doesn't make you selfish, that setting limits doesn't make you cold, that protecting your peace doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. And in that wholeness, you find a new kind of power, one that doesn't need to prove itself, one that doesn't beg to be seen, one that stands firm, unshaken, unbothered. Your kindness was never the problem. It never was. The problem was letting people believe it meant they could walk all over you. But today, that stops. Today, you draw the line. Today, you protect your peace because your kindness is a gift, and not everyone deserves it. The only way to win is to walk away, and they never saw it coming. They set the rules, the mixed signals, the silence that spoke louder than words, the sudden bursts of attention just enough to keep you from walking away. They knew exactly how to keep you guessing, how to keep you hooked, how to make sure you were always the one putting in the effort, and you played along not because you wanted to play, but because you thought that's what it took to keep them. Then something changed. You stopped, and when you stopped, the entire game fell apart. They weren't ready for that, were they? They relied on your reactions, on your overthinking, on your willingness to prove your worth over and over again. Their control over you only existed because you engaged. But the second you refused to play, their strategy became useless. Their power over you dissolved, and their ego took a hit it never saw coming. Let's be real. This wasn't easy for you. Walking away meant walking away from the hope that one day they'd change, that one day they'd finally see your worth, that if you just tried a little harder, they'd stop playing games and start choosing you the way you had always chosen them. But here's the truth. You were never meant to win their game. It was rigged from the start. Their rules were never designed to value you. They were designed to control you. How many times did they leave you doubting yourself, wondering if you were good enough, confused by their actions, analyzing their every word, waiting for a sign that you mattered to them? That's how the game works. Keep you uncertain, and they keep you invested. But the moment you saw through it, everything shifted. Their tricks didn't work anymore. The bait they dangled wasn't tempting because you realized something powerful. You never needed their approval to feel whole. Picture this. They're sitting across a chessboard, smug and confident, waiting for your next move. They've played this game before. They know how it usually goes. You try to prove your worth. They stay in control. But this time, something is different. You stand up, you smile, you walk away. Checkmate. Not because you beat them at their own game, but because you refuse to play. That's power, the kind they never saw coming. When you stop engaging, you force them to face themselves. Without your reactions to fuel their ego, all they have left is their own insecurities, their own doubts, their own emptiness. The silence you create becomes a mirror, and what they see is not pretty. They counted on you to validate them, to chase, to overthink, to keep their fragile ego from crumbling. Now that you're gone, they're left, scrambling, trying to figure out how to regain control. But they won't find it in you anymore. Let's not pretend this was easy. Walking away takes courage. It's tempting to fall back in when they send that cryptic message, when they like an old photo, when they find some excuse to remind you they still exist. It's easy to see those breadcrumbs and wonder, do they miss me? Do they finally care? But ask yourself this. Do you really want to go back to a game where the rules were never in your favor? You've come too far to let yourself be pulled back in. Your silence isn't just about walking away, it's about reclaiming your energy, your time, your peace of mind. It's about proving to yourself that you were never a pawn in their game. You were always the one in control, and there's nothing more powerful than that. What happens next? They'll test you, push buttons, throw out bait, do whatever they can to make you react. Because if you react, even with anger, Even with frustration, it means they still have a hold on you, but you won't fall for it this time. You see their tactics for what they are, desperate attempts to regain a sense of control they never really had. And the best part, you don't need to respond. Your silence says everything. Power doesn't come from winning their game. It comes from leaving it behind. The eyes you don't see are watching. Even in silence, they act like they don't care, like they've moved on, like your absence means nothing. But make no mistake, they're watching, not openly, not in ways you can easily see, but behind the scenes where pride won't let them admit it. They're keeping tabs. Maybe they're scrolling through your social media, rereading old messages, or quietly noticing how you've pulled away. And the more you detach, the more curious they become, because nothing is louder than silence. When you were chasing, over-explaining, always trying to keep the connection alive, they felt secure. They knew you'd always be there, so they didn't need to wonder, didn't need to question, didn't need to care. But the moment you stopped playing that role, the entire dynamic shifted. Suddenly, you became a mystery, and the ego hates mystery. It craves answers, control, validation. When you take those things away, you create a void they can't ignore. People notice your absence far more than your presence. How many times have you caught yourself wondering, why haven't they reached out? Why don't they seem to care? It's easy to assume their silence means they've moved on, that they never cared in the first place. But that's not the full story. Their silence is calculated. It's controlled. It's a move in the game, an attempt to appear unaffected. But in reality, they're watching every step you take, waiting to see if their absence will make you come running back. They aren't indifferent, they're testing. They want to know if their silence will break you, if you'll crack under the weight of their retreat, if you'll reach out just to reassure them that they still have a hold on you. But here's where the real shift happens. You don't respond. You don't chase. You don't give them the reaction they expect. And suddenly, the game is over. By staying firm in your silence, you flip the script. You're no longer reacting to them. You're living on your own terms, and that drives them crazy. They might not admit it, but every post you make, every moment you thrive without them, it gets under their skin. Not because they suddenly love you, not because they've changed, but because it reminds them of something their ego won't let them accept. They lost someone who wasn't afraid to walk away. Imagine this. You're walking away from a burning bridge, never looking back. Then standing on the other side, watching, waiting, hoping you'll turn around. But you don't. And that silence, it's deafening. It forces them to confront the truth. You were never the one chasing them. You were simply giving them a chance to meet you where you stood. And now that chance is gone. So what happens next? They watch, they wonder, they question. But you keep moving forward. You stay focused on your growth, your happiness, your goals, not to make a statement, not to prove a point, but because you have better things to do. They're watching, yes, but they're watching you rise. The mask slips, and they can't escape the reflection. They wear it well, don't they? That mask of indifference, of confidence, of superiority. It's carefully crafted, designed to make you believe they're untouchable, that they don't need you, that your absence means nothing. But masks crack, and the moment you stepped back, the cracks began to show. Their ego thrives on one thing: control. As long as you were there, chasing validation, seeking their attention, they never had to face themselves. They could live in the illusion that your effort meant they were the ones in power. But when you stopped playing, something shifted. Suddenly, the mask didn't fit as well as it used to. Nothing exposes the truth like silence. When you were always there, you were a distraction, a shield between them and the uncomfortable reality of who they really are. Your presence kept them from questioning their own actions, their own flaws, their own insecurities. But when you walked away, all they had left was their reflection, and that's when it hit them. The confidence they displayed was only skin deep. The control they thought they had was an illusion. Picture this. They're standing in front of a mirror, staring at themselves, and for the first time, they see the cracks. The version of themselves they projected to the world doesn't align with the truth staring back at them. And then the questions start creeping in, questions they never wanted to ask. Why did they leave? Why aren't they coming back? Was it something I did? Am I the problem? And those questions cut deeper than anything you could have said to them, because when you stop feeding their ego, they are left starving for answers. But instead of facing the cracks, instead of sitting with the truth, they'll do what they do best: hide. They'll double down on the mask, try harder to look unbothered. Maybe they'll post more, flaunt a new connection, pretend they've moved on, but it's not about you. It's about them, desperately trying to glue the shattered pieces of their ego back together. Let them. That's their battle, not yours. Your silence isn't just a statement. It's a spotlight, a mirror they can't avoid, a reflection of what they've been running from. And in that reflection, they'll see the one thing they can't deny. They lost something real when they lost you. The cracks in their mask are the truths they tried to hide, but now they have no choice but to see them. The door that closed was never yours. Rejection is redirection. Rejection stings, whether it's subtle, like being ignored, or direct, like hearing, "I don't feel the same way." It can feel like a punch to the gut. It's natural to question yourself, to wonder if you weren't enough, if you could have done something differently. But here's the truth. Rejection isn't about you. It's about a path you were never meant to walk. Think of it like standing at a crossroads. You thought you knew the way, believed that this was the right path, the right person, the right situation, but suddenly the road is blocked. No explanation, no warning, just a dead end. At first, it feels unfair. You wanted to go that way. You had a vision, a hope, a plan. But what if that road was leading nowhere? What if that rejection wasn't a failure but a redirection? Sometimes the shadows you chase are meant to lead you into the light. Picture this. You're holding a door open, waiting, hoping they'll walk through. You're patient, standing there, believing that if you just hold on a little longer, they'll see your worth and step forward. But they don't. They walk away. They choose a different path. And for a moment, you feel stuck, frozen in place, staring at the empty doorway, wondering what you did wrong. But here's what you don't see yet. You weren't meant to hold that door forever. You were meant to let it close, to turn around and see the new door waiting for you, wide open, leading somewhere brighter. Rejection forces you to pause, to reflect, to realign with what's truly meant for you. It strips away the illusions, the distractions, the unnecessary attachments, leaving you with something powerful. Clarity. Clarity about who you are, clarity about what you deserve, clarity about where you're going. And here's where it gets interesting. When you stop seeing rejection as an ending and start seeing it as a redirection, you take back your power. You realize their rejection doesn't define your worth. It never did. In fact, it has nothing to do with your worth. Your value is unshakable. Their inability to see it, that's their loss, not yours. Rejection isn't proof of your inadequacy, it's proof of their inability to value you. So what happens next? You stop waiting at closed doors. You stop wasting energy trying to prove yourself to people who couldn't see your worth in the first place. Instead, you turn that energy inward. You invest in yourself. You chase the passions, the dreams, the opportunities that light you up. And in doing so, you discover something incredible. The shadow of rejection was never meant to hold you back. It was meant to push you forward. The door that closed wasn't your door. The path that was blocked wasn't meant for you. And now, without that weight holding you down, you can finally move toward what was always waiting for you. Rejection doesn't dim your light. It sets you free.